It's about 4 minutes past the hour 7. Good evening and welcome to your weekly news analysis show. It's Press Pass here on Asaase 99.5. My name is Andy Sepah. I'm your host for tonight. This evening, as always, we're going to have a conversation with our newsmakers and also our resource persons on some pertinent issues that have come up in the course of the week. You can join the conversation on our Facebook page. It's Asaase 99.5. We are 5 years, and so if you just log on to our page, you will see the figure 5 on our profile, and so Asaase 99.5, and we are streaming live there. You can drop your comments and then I'll be glad to read them as the show progresses. You can also WhatsApp us on 02-400-9951 02-0000-9951. Tonight, attention is firmly fixed on the government to find a swift solution with the ongoing strike action by the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association. Now, the healthcare system is under immense strains, and patients with critical medical conditions face increasingly dire circumstances due to the severe staff shortages in hospitals, clinics nationwide. Now, the striking nurses and midwives have suspended their duties in protest over what they describe as inadequate working conditions and poor terms of service. In an attempt to curb the escalating healthcare crisis, the Minister of Health, Kwabena Takando, has unveiled emergency interventions. And these emergency interventions include the nationwide appeal to retired nurses and retired midwives to temporarily return to the workforce. And we know that the Mortuary Workers Association have also waded into the whole strike game and is becoming more pressure on the government. And also tonight we are delving deeper into the New Patriotic Party's internal elections. We know they've announced that candidates who are willing to aspire for the executive positions within the party, there's going to be an open gate for them to do that. But as of now, they have been directed not to, go on with any campaign. But we've seen some big wigs of the party campaigning, especially those who are aspiring to be presidential candidates for the New Patriotic Party in the coming general elections. That is 2028. And that is in the person of former Member of Parliament for Asin Central, that is Kennedy Japan, who has stated that the New Patriotic Party does not reward poor performance with second chances, especially when it comes to choosing a flag bearer for national elections. You may call it a small campaign, but we would be delving deeper into the party's constitution. And also, there is some reforms with the constitution. We have some guests here to tell us more about what is going on regarding the party's constitution. In the studio, I have some. Okay. So we are trying to get the mics on, but I have in the studio 3 able guests who will be here to have the conversation with me as well. And so in the studio, I have John Awuni. He is the editor for Kassben Online. John, you're welcome to the show.
Thank you, my brother.
And also we have Dr. Ekua Amoakoh, the NPP communications team member, a very staunch team member of the NPP. Dr. Ekua, it's been a while.
Andy, I know it has been a while. I'm happy to.
You ran away, sir. But anyway, you're welcome to the show as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, we also have in the studio Philip Donko. He wasn't actually on the flyer, but accidentally we have him here. We know he's here to catch some fire. Philip, you're welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
So Philip is with the Daily Statesman. Welcome to the show, lady and gentlemen. Let me just begin with Dr. Ekua. You are a doctor, and this is actually a concern that is actually taking shape, talking about the healthcare system in the country. We know already the healthcare system in the country is not really, it's not really in a good state, and talk of the staff or the resource persons involved laying down their tools because of some conditions of service not being taken care of. How do you find the ministers or the ministry's intervention in this whole fiasco going on?
Oh, all right. Thank you. I'm sure anybody that has been following my position on this matter, whether on the airwaves or through social media, already knows where I stand. I'm sure all well-meaning Ghanaians who are observing the situation are not pleased with what's going on. Negotiations between employer and staff are something that happen from time to time. In almost every company, you have those kinds of negotiations.
Right.
But especially in a country where one of the vital pillars that will power our growth is the health sector, it's very disheartening to see the tangent that the current government has decided to thread on this matter. I've heard very disturbing things coming out of the camp of the NDC, various leading members saying all manner of terrible things. And let me just use this opportunity to also ask journalists to remember their journalistic integrity and to be more circumspect in some of the things that they've been saying, because I see some of the videos and I have to go and watch it again to hope that it's not some AI generated something. And I'm sure anybody listening
who are you referring
knows exactly
to
what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Because it's unheard of. How can you say people are overpampered and compare them to nurses outside the country when you know perfectly well that the conditions are not the same? One thing that makes their position truly interesting is what we would call the market premium or the value of the service that they provide.
Right.
So you can even be in a company and the most senior person will not be paid the most, but who is seen to be more valuable on the market. Isn't that so? That's like basic things that go on. So if you're a nurse in Ghana, first, they have a very good reputation. We are here and we don't have the nicest view of them. But if you're exporting nurses from Africa, those from Ghana have a very good reputation. And so other countries have made it very easy for them to emigrate, as it were, into their system. Once you get there, you are earning several times more. So, it's ridiculous to even try and compare the two situations. What it means is that those who have decided to stay back here are doing their patriotic duty by Ghanaians. They are doing their best to manage the system that we are in so that we can all grow together.
Right.
So if they come up, and these conditions of service have already been negotiated by the previous administration, and just like they did with GRNMA, because I remember when the car waiver thing came up, I was also on here. That was also in relation to conditions of service that they were refusing to basically implement, using the excuse that they didn't sign those agreements. But government is a continuum. It's government of Ghana, the NGMA, government of Ghana, and the Nurses and Midwives Council. It's not NDC or NPP. You don't write that on any contract. But it's obvious that there are priorities in this matter all over the place. When it comes to finding money for things that they find important to them, they do find it. But to the nurses, you want them to wait 1 whole year for you to implement what they've already agreed on. Now let's go in some of the actual things that these nurses are asking for. Something as basic as their health care to be taken care of by the government. I don't think anybody will sit here and think that they're asking for too much. And that's why I'm saying is the approach. If you sit down with them, I'm sure they have some other demands, but of course they will be able to yield and move around some of the things. But when you start on this tangent of you are going to bring retired nurses and things, it just means you have no idea, you don't have a grasp on the sector that you are dealing. You have no idea the people that you are dealing with. Because a retired nurse at home, my grandmother, she was a nurse. She's retired now. In fact, she retired as director of nursing of Komfanoche Teaching Hospital. Her pension right now is not up to 1,000 Ghana cedis, and she retired as director.
Wow. Then talk of
yes. So the retired nurses at home that are barely surviving, they are barely scraping by the snits that the country Ghana is. How do you expect them to now come back to work? How is that a sensible solution to the matter? I don't think the seriousness of this issue is being borne to them. That's why they are handling it the way that they are handling it. This is a matter of serious discussion. You sit at the table with them and you try to come to a consensus. This is not the time for threats. But it's not surprising. It looks like that's how the NDC always chooses to handle problems. I remember when I was really, really young, sometime in President Mohammed's first government, there was the same conditions of service fight with the GMA. The leaders at that time even had the effrontery to go as far as to, after telling us that we were behaving like terrorists trying to hold the country to ransom, they went as far as saying that they would rather go and bring doctors from Cuba, which they did. They would rather do that than negotiate the conditions of service. And fast forward, there's a change of government, and the new government is able to implement those conditions of service, meaning it wasn't too much to ask. It wasn't too much of a burden. It was something that if the government had the will and discipline, they would have been able to implement it. Because once they left, those conditions of service were promptly agreed to by the next government, which was Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo's government. So, I'll just sit here. This is a matter of health. This is a very serious and sensitive matter. Ideally, I would not even want to come at it with a political lens. I would plead with the sitting government and the leadership of the nurses to, in the interest of the people of Ghana, quickly come to some kind of resolution that would stop the hemorrhaging as it is.
Well, I'll come back to you, Doc, but there's some school of thought that there is some political motivation, backing this whole strike thing. Many people are believing that it is the opposition NPP that is backing this whole strike action.
Utterly ridiculous.
I'll come back to you. I'll come back to you. But let me just come to you, John. This seems to be taking a lot of time for the government to intervene. It's been like a week now that the nurses and midwives dropped their tools to register their displeasure. With the minister's intervention so far, the call for retired nurses, appreciating nurses who are resisting to go on the strike, who are trying to help. On the other side, do you have a feeling, or do you sense some sort of the minister's refusal to intervene swiftly to ensure that these nurses get back to work?
Thank you, my brother. I think in part I side with Dr. Ekua in her submission. Matters relating to health is matters that are very serious to every nation. Just today, a young man of 18 years died at Kun Hospital because he was rushed there and there was no nurse to assist. And he was referred to a private hospital. Unfortunately, things didn't work out and this young soul has just been lost. So the government, with a knee-jerk reaction, as in getting the old or retired nurses to come and temporarily help, I don't think is the best of solution. They need to keep cool heads. Whether it is NPP behind or not, what matters is the nurses are fighting for something justifiably right in their request or whatever was put out there before they took the governance of this country almost 6 months ago. So they need to go to the drawing board and sit with them, the leadership, and then they map up a strategy or a timeline as to when their problems will be solved or their demands will be met. Because I don't believe that if they sit and then talk Giorgio, the nurses will be so cruel that they will not accept to maybe some timelines where government will start to roll out some of the requests that they are demanding. But
John, sorry to cut you. It seems that there have been a lot of Giorgio, there's been a lot of engagement, but there is no conclusion in this whole engagement going on. Is it that the government has been adamant in responding to the demands these workers are making, or there seem to be some differences or indifferences between the two parties?
Yes, whether indifferences or differences whatsoever, I think the government, that's why I said they have to keep cool heads. Because when you want to be hard in matters of this nature, because even yesterday or so, the Rich Hospital, the doctors there were overstretched because nurses are not there. They are doing their job all right, they are doing their work all right, but without the nurses, and I don't think it was out of nothing. Florence Nightingale brought this nursing profession to existence. It was for specific reasons, because the doctors will always come, but the nurses are the people who does most of the administration of drugs, checking of a whole lot of BMI, body mass index, whatsoever, vital statistics, as the nurses would term it, and what of you, and even when you go to the antenatal wards, they do a lot. So, and they are, when you go to hospital, they play a bigger role, as in their numbers, and without them things will not work. So if the government had meetings with the leadership of Ghana Registered Nurses Association or Midwives Association, they need to agree at a point, because I don't think they'll be so demanding that government offered this or government gave a timeline that will deliver at this time or this period, and for that matter, they decided not to, because I don't think the nurses in hearing that the young man died today because he could not get nurses to attend to, and then the family had to rush to a private hospital, and unfortunately he couldn't survive. Maybe if there were nurses at Pung Government Hospital, possibly something would have been done or to rescue this young soul. Just 18 years, he's gone because of the strike, and I don't think the nurses will be happy, because it could happen to any of their family members. In matters of issues like this, we need cool heads, because one, coming out to say the retired nurses should maybe volunteer to come, is sending a signal. It can even prolong the strike action, and I don't think most of them had gone on retirement so many years ago. And in Ghana, sometimes somebody jokingly said, we have football age, and what of you? Some retired at 70, so if he retired for 10 years, he's almost 80 years. He will not have the energy to possibly do it. That is on the lighter side. But whatever be the case, these people have retired, and they are resting with their meager SNIT allowance, as Doc mentioned, and bringing them on board within this very short period might not help things. So what they need to do is that they should go back. They should continue to negotiate with the nurses. And anytime government takes power, or a new government takes power, there's backlog of demands that were not met, possibly in the previous government, or there were some demands that were about to be rolled out, but before the government exited. And the only time they can get those things implemented is to put pressure on the new government to make sure that their demands are met. And for this, I believe that Honorable Akando and his government, they should engage further, because I remember there was a time when President Mahama took office. You remember there was this allowance issues with regards to the base pay or whatever. It was reduced drastically, and the leadership understood that the country was entangled with a lot of debt and other things, and the government couldn't have met the demands that they wanted to the government to initiate. So going forward, they should continue to engage, even though in the knee-jerk reaction they are bringing the retired nurses to come and help, but they should get them involved. They should go back. They should do behind-the-scenes negotiation. I think if there are timelines, spelled out timelines, the nurses will get back to work, and then because already MPOX is in the listen. I think one is currently on admission, and every day they keep recording. And if this becomes very serious, like we had in the COVID and other communicable diseases, then it means there will be so much pressure on the doctors, and possibly the casualties will be very, very high. So cool heads, continue to negotiate, and I don't think they will just say, okay, looking at the situation, we can implement it immediately, but we can implement it maybe by September or by this particular month, and then the nurses will not agree and decide to continue to be in strike. I think they need to engage further. Engage further, because it is becoming alarming. And when you go to hospital, that is where you appreciate that the work is very monumental.
Right. Let me come to Philip. So John is calling for cool heads and effective negotiation. At this stage where we find ourselves, what is the exact way? Do you share the same view that cool heads should, breach and then have some effective negotiations to conclude and resolve this whole division going on?
Thank you very much. I think I also side with John in the sense that when you look at the contributions of our nurses and midwives, we can clearly see that they are the frontline health workers so far as our health system is concerned.
Right.
So in situations like this, cool heads must be called. But then I also believe that the government shouldn't just talk, but then he should walk the talk. You look at the government, the Minister for Communication, that is Felix Ofosu-Kwakye. Yeah, I think he was on Channel 1 TV, I think yesterday or recently, and then the comments that he was making, I think in situations like this, we shouldn't just look at a kind of political affiliation. It's more or less like a complex issue and a very serious matter. Just recently, one 18-year-old girl I think, visited 3 hospitals, and then unfortunately he was not attended to. Some of these things are not helping the country. We should try as much as possible not to be blinded by our political lens or our political colors. Looking at this issue, it's not just an issue. They are striking, and then they are striking for a reason. The nurses or the midwives are striking, and then they are demanding dignity. They are demanding safety. They are demanding fairness. Will one say they are not right? No. But for a ruling government, for that matter, calling on other nursing or midwife retirees to come on board and support, I think that message alone wasn't in the right direction. It wasn't in the right direction at all. This is the problem or the demands of the nurses and the midwives. What do you have to do? You look at their promotional demands, other bottlenecks they are bringing on board, and then you try as much as possible to give them that kind of assurance that, within this time frame or within this time limit, you are going to work things out for them. But if you come out and then you try to kind of...
But there has been some assurances.
Well, that statement or that comment alone kind of downplayed the assurance.
I think it doesn't... Okay. But you think the assurances they made to these nurses and midwives are not so assuring or not so satisfactory?
If they were, there would be no need for the minister in the first place even calling for most of these retired nurses or midwives to even come on board and support.
Let me come to you, Doc. And it appears as though you are actually in this field yourself, and you know and you understand the plight of these workers. But in the long term, what are the reforms you think we should, implement to make sure that we do not get here? We know that every year or every beginning of every government, there is this strike biting hard, especially at essential areas, particularly the health sector. What reforms would you suggest should the government implement to make sure that we do not get here where people are dying because of strike?
Okay, so I'll start from the question you asked before that I couldn't.
Oh, the political. I thought you had answered.
No. I would like to explain so that people understand that it's factual, not just throwing it out there.
Right.
All you need to do is take your phone and then Google nurses strike, put maybe 2022, put 2021 there.
Okay.
And then you see that this is not a new matter. And cannot be NPP generated. Even if that you can prove that some of the executives everybody is entitled to have their political affiliation, but people of integrity usually do not allow that to blindly color their jobs. So because they are able to get other unions to sort of hold the country at ransom, like we saw with UTAG, they expect that everybody is doing that. But I can assure you that the nurses have a lot of integrity and credibility. I've met the president myself, and she's not a woman who kowtow to any kind of political pressure. They actually have a case. These conditions of service were negotiated last year. I think there were some issues that held it back, and the final approval was granted in January. So if you were really interested in solving the problem, you make room for it in your budget, which was read in March. But it wasn't important to you, so you didn't do anything about it. But you found extra money for the office of the president, extra money that's amounted to almost 3 billion cedis. And they have come out themselves to say that all they needed to solve this problem was 2 billion. So the extra money you sent to the office of the president could have solved this. The almost $300 million you sent to Gold Board could have solved this. Just a little bit of that could have solved this. So it's a matter of priorities. So after they've seen all of this and they've seen what's going on, you don't come and attack and insult and threaten them. As everybody has been saying around this table, you try to sit down to come to a workable conclusion. And these retired nurses, they are still members of the association. So if the association is saying that they've declared a strike, what should the retired people do? And those people are even more upset probably than than the current ones. So I'm just, as I said earlier, this becomes in the interest of the people of Ghana. We all need the strike to end. So we just call on both parties to try and find some middle ground. But I can tell you that the nurses will not yield too much.
They will not yield.
Not too much. You would have to meet them halfway, which I think is absolutely fair.
While people are dying.
No. Okay, so if one of them was sick, right? One of the nurses who work on people was sick right now and needed, say you work at Ridge or you work somewhere else and then you need treatment at Ridge and you don't have any relationships there. When you come, you would have to pay.
As a nurse?
Yes. If you can't afford it, you will also die. If you're able to use your relationships to get a doctor to see you, which is usually how the system works, they will come, this nurse, here, BB, then you see them. But you are not going to pay for the medication. No, you will write it for them. If it requires labs or tests or scans that are very expensive, you write it for them and they have to find money to go and do it. So they could also die. They are not important.
That's a question to the minister.
Yeah, that's an open question. So it's a balancing act. You have to be able to be. Life is all about self-preservation. You have to be in sort of a comfortable place to be able to help others. When you're on an airplane, they tell you to put on your mask first before you help others. So you cannot downplay their needs and try some emotional blackmail on them to bring them onto the table for this matter. No, it requires way better than that.
So it suggests that the government's intervention or slowed intervention actually triggered this whole strike thing that has come so far, to the extent that people are even dying.
Of course. And it was around the same thing that they were trying with GRNMA with this car waiver thing. The car waiver had been done, conditions of service done, some of the cars cleared. You come into government, you are behaving brand new about it till pressure is applied to a point. A lot of people even ended up paying for their cars. They didn't get a refund. The number of the cars there, people paid. So finally, when they cleared, it was left with 30, and they've discontinued that. GRNMA has taken its cool. But they could also come back. So you cannot be a social democrat and continuously seem to take workers for granted. They are very divergent.
Let's take a look at the reforms that I was asking about. Preventing recurring strikes in the health sector. We know it's an essential sector and it shouldn't be tempered. Let's look at reforms. As a doctor, what would you say the government should adopt to make sure that we do not get here and they also not find pressure in resolving issues like this?
I think it all comes down to the attitude of whoever is in government.
Okay.
And the way you handle these matters, because times move and times change, so there will always be negotiations for better conditions of service. I don't see how you can create a system that is so perfect that from time to time your workers will not come back to their employer to request better conditions of service. It is how you sit down and negotiate with them. I'm not saying that in the past 8 years the NPP government did not have, as I said, all you need to do is Google. There was a time they were asking for COLA allowance, all of those things. It's how you go about it. But if you start by sending your mercenaries out to attack them, you start by questioning their intelligence. I've seen very terrible things written about them. Yes, what you do is to stoke emotions and push them into an entrenched position as well. So obviously, if you take that, whenever you come into government, you have these problems. But if you see them as the useful force that they are, underpaid, undervalued, and they have a skill that is highly valuable out there, if you see it like that and you start to treat them like that, I do believe that it will not escalate to this level. Because as I said, this you cannot do away with this, but it's just how you go about it.
Any other things? You have actually seen the plight of these nurses, and right now it appears as though they are fighting for their lives and they are fighting for other people's lives. And the core, because personally, I don't like to bring my personal, but personally my auntie also visited Kolebu and these nurses were not around, so she had to go home. She's on dialysis, and Dr. Ekua, it's quite sad to hear. So can the nurses also consider at least?
The same...
Because they also have families.
Andy, the same thing that I told you. There's probably a nurse on dialysis herself who also cannot even afford the dialysis.
Right.
So, I can understand perfectly the plight of people that are getting turned by. The nurses are the backbone of any healthcare system. Even if you're on admission, how many times you see your doctor? Just go through your mind and see it. The one who is there taking care of you all the time is a nurse. Some of them catch diseases on the job, and there is no safety net for them. So just like you mentioned about your auntie, there's also a nurse somewhere who needs dialysis herself, who cannot afford it because she's not paid well enough. If she's on retirement, she cannot afford it because the SNIT money is peanuts, and she's also struggling. So I think we have to be very careful. I understand where the patients are coming from, but personally, I also very much understand where the nurses are coming from.
It's quite interesting between emotions and also personal needs.
Yeah.
But let me just come to you, John. Let's look at reforms. We are trying to end this conversation and dive into our next topic, reforms. Dr. Ekua talks about attitudinal change, especially with those who have been given the appointment to underlook or oversee the affairs of the health sector. What would you say, or what would you contribute to these factors that Dr. Ekua has laid out to make sure that we don't get here?
Yes, I think Doctor is comfortably speaking to the issues from her professional point.
Exactly.
From journalistic point, I think in every facet of life, sometimes we need reforms to turn things around. If we get proper reforms, we'll not even get to where we have gotten to. Because like she said, whatever ailment that affects the ordinary Ghanaian also affects the nurses. Technically, they say we have some nosocomial diseases, that disease that you get in the hospital. And these diseases sometimes, even if you look at the outbreak of the COVID-19, the epicenter, or the what we call the index case of the COVID, where it first started, that's Wuhan in China. The doctor who tested, or who the disease was made available or was made known, died of COVID. So mostly the nurses, especially their kids that are part of the demands that they are asking for, should be met, in the sense that there are some ailments that you can easily get in the hospital. So if you are not well catered in terms of the things that you use in the hospital, you also get sick, and you will not be able to perform your duties. So if there are going to be reforms, the reforms should look at getting the desired kits for the health workers, i.e. the nurses, because like the doctor said, when you go to hospital, the doctor will only come sometimes maybe in the morning and then late in the evenings. Most of the works are done by nurses. I had an opportunity of doing my service at the hospital. There was a time I never knew that if you go to a hospital and somebody gets an accident, and then maybe a nurse will have to sign for you to be given Petidin to be injected if the doctor is not around.
Right.
So it got to a point, there was a serious accident, and as a national service person, I was compelled to sign. And whatever would have happened afterwards, I would have been in trouble, because those medicine, you are not, unless you are a professional health person, to be able to issue it out from, because I was at a pharmacy.
Right.
So an emergency case came, and I had to sign for the Petidin to be given out for that patient to be injected and possibly treated. So the little I saw there, they are actually going through a lot. I know I don't think they are deliberately holding this government to ransom just to make their case. But just as an ordinary Ghanaian can fall sick and go to hospital, the nurse's family can also fall sick and go. So, like I said, cool heads needs to, but the reforms you are talking about, it's a necessity. Government should look at it and then make the very urgent ones. You know, some things are important, others are very important. The very important among the requests that the nurses are making, they should make it available, and then let's move on, because health is the most precious thing that you can talk of. If you are dead, you will not be able to talk about anything.
Exactly.
But now that we have the opportunity to save lives, let's save. Let's not take a stand and then try to bastardize them as this political party or that political party, and they are possibly trying to use their professional work to victimize the government or to make the government look unpopular. Cool heads must play here, so that we have a better Ghana moving forward.
We have a better Ghana moving forward. Philip, I would come to you lastly on this topic, reforms, and also, the end game of this whole thing that started with just a copy of a statement now is now a reality, and it's hitting harder, it's biting harder. What would you say the government should implement, should adopt to make sure that we do not get here?
I would say that preventing some of these incidents should not just be in a way of silencing the nurses or midwives, or trying to kind of engage in tug of war between the midwives and the nurses. But then the government should be able to listen. The government should respect, and the government should act on the various demands that the nurses and the midwives are bringing on board. I believe that if that is done, and then that is also done swiftly, then some of these recurrent health disruptions will not happen as we move on. So it's not just about kind of silencing the midwives and then the nurses, or kind of engaging in a war of fight or tag to show that kind of governmental superiority. But then this government should be one that listens, one that acts, and then now respect the kind of demands or actions taken by this nurses and midwives.
Now, you're still listening to Press Pass here on Asaase 99.5. We are streaming live on Facebook. It's Asaase 99.5. So if you're listening to us, you can just go to Facebook and then share your comments on the issues we've discussed so far. We've been discussing the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association strike that is crippling the health services in various hospitals. Now, let's shift our attention to another interesting development in politics. And it appears as though many people are eyeing on the presidential candidature, that is the presidential candidate for the New Patriotic Party in the year 2028. Dr. Ekua, you are the National Communications Team member, and you have seen how things are unraveling. And it appears as though it's early days for people to take chances to announce their bidding to become the leadership or to become the leader of the party. We know that the NPP, the party has actually issued a directive that, no one should start campaigning, even with regarding the internal elections. But now we are looking at, intentions being shown on social media, people trying to bastardize the performance of the previous presidential candidate, or let's say the presidential candidate, 2024 presidential candidate of the NPP. Would you say it's early days yet to start conversations like this, or the party should sit down and then resolve the whole internal issues going on, have a conclave on the constitution reforms, and then open the gate for those who are seeking to lead the party in the coming general elections? Don't you think it's too early?
We're already doing that with our constitution. I'm sure you're aware of that. We're already working on our constitution, and I'm sure in a few weeks you would hear from the party on that matter. So a lot of work is being done. But personally, if you look at the history of the NPP, our internal presidential contest is always very competitive and murky. So I don't envy the national leadership of the party now, because they're in a very delicate situation. Being seen to crack the whip can also be used against you. I don't know if you get that.
I get it.
Being seen to crack, because a lot of things are going on that are untoward and are terrible and do not inure to the benefits of the NPP as a whole. People are putting their personal interests, and it almost looks like they want to go on a path of distraction or chaos, as much chaos as they can master. But at this point, this is speaking solely in my view, I see that if the national executives, even though they might find some of the things untoward, the minute they start to crack the whip, it will also be used as ammunition against the entire party system. So when I'm talking on this matter, I try to be very circumspect, because it's a very dicey and murky situation. Our constitution we are working on, I'm pretty sure in a few weeks the results of that will be made public. To me, there's only one solution to this problem. You can't. The directive was by the party was not for any candidates to engage delegates or constituency executives. That has obviously been publicly flouted. I don't think it's surprising to anybody who understands or is very much familiar about.
Must it be encouraged?
It shouldn't. But just as I said, it's cracking the whip right now could even do us more harm. So it's a very dicey situation. So to me, the only solution is to let us have our election as early as possible. Let's vote. The baby is being torn apart. It's what I like to see. There's like a serious tug of war for the baby. Right. How do you save the baby? Let's decide who the baby belongs to as quickly as possible. Whoever takes it takes the baby and it has a healthy baby that hopefully can survive 2028. But if we allow this tug of war to prolong, it's only going to cause harm to the New Patriotic Party. And it's obvious that certain players in this game do not mind that the party takes a few beatings so that it's inures to their own selfish interests. And I'm hoping that the rank and file of the party and the delegates are watching what's going on and they do not reward that kind of behavior. That's all I would have to say on that.
I'll come back to you with that. John, right. It appears as though we are seeing names popping up regarding who represents the NPP in the 2028 general elections. It looks like the interest is increasing, and we've seen the likes of Kennedy Japan, who recently made announcements and was making some pronouncements regarding the past election and his potentials. We've seen Brian Champong also, review his, not actually his plans, but he said he's conducting some findings or survey. And so you could tell that it's given an indication of his interest. We know that the former vice president has also been going on his thank you tour, and the party's thank you tour, and there's been some talks, and we know that so far these three have actually popped up the names. Dr. Ekua is saying that we should as soon as possible vote and also elect someone who will represent the party so that we can just rally our support behind him before something escalates to distract the party. From your position or where you sit as a journalist, would you say it's too early to have this whole conversation go running, or the party should sit back and then assess the whole flaws that went on in their defeat?
Thank you very much. I know Doc is speaking from the pot because she's there, and then she knows what.
I want to ask her what is going on in the constitution reform.
but over the weekend, I had a rare privilege of listening to a conversation by the venerable Kwame Pienim, and he took us back to the Conservative Party in the UK and how before you even will contest for a position, you would have gone through the mail, understand the party doctrine, the party philosophy, and what of you. But in NPP, in the last few years, get money and come in and you easily win a position. And that beats the party philosophy, and that, it brings people who have money to just come and buy the position. They don't understand anything about the party philosophy. And he was saying that it is good the party goes back to the roots, where possibly they train the younger generation to imbibe the philosophy of the party, how it was formed, and from 92, and even some of the founding fathers, the kind of persecution they went through. Some even went to prison, including Kwame Pienim himself, who spent almost 10 years in prison. And just to make sure that multi-party democracy was birthed to Ghanaians. And looking at what is happening right now, I think that, like Doc mentioned, the constitution should be the supreme guide, so that if somebody comes with deep pocket, as in cash, and doesn't understand anything about the party doctrines, the person should straight away be disqualified. But unlike the previous elections, yes, after electioneering loss of a particular year or regime, the next regime, a lot of people will pop up. If you look at NPP in 92, Eduboyin led the party. In 96, Akufo-Addo and others came, and then Eduboyin could not get a chance to lead the party in 96, and Akufo led 96 and then 2000 and brought victory to the party for the first time in over 30 years. And then after Akufo, Nana Akufo-Addo came, and he tried in 2008, he didn't succeed. 2012, he didn't succeed, and in 2016 election, he finally succeeded. If you look elsewhere in the US, if you remember the Republican, when Obama came, yes, we can. Even that campaign, it was very murkier than elsewhere in even democratic or new democracies like Ghana, which is a very young democracy. At some point, Obama was likened to be Saddam Hussein, and you know how the Americans played a role in the execution of Saddam Hussein in 2006 or so. And that particular election, most of Clinton's campaign team were highlighting the Hussein in Barack's name to indicate that he was that Saddam Hussein, who was number one enemy to the Americans. They did nasty things, but when Obama finally won the right to lead the Democrat, Hillary played a role, and that's why she became the Secretary of State, if you remember. So these are internal distance, but it shouldn't escalate to the extent that their number one enemy now is to unseat the current government in 2028. But if it is not managed very well, it can sink the party further. Yes, somebody led in 2024 and things did not work out. It does not necessarily mean that the person was a bad candidate. It could be that the factors that be, as in Ghana, every 8 years, there's going to be a change. And we are not that there as compared to the Americans. America had independence in 1776, 4th July. Look at it, how many years? Over 400 years before Ghana became independent. Because if you even add 300 years, okay, let's say 250 plus years before Ghana became independent. And that alone tells you that they started democracy way back in 1776, 4th of July, with George Washington and John Adams and those in that order. And then the fourth president, who was named as the capital of Liberia, Monrovia. That is James Monroe. So NPP, the Constitution should, the Constitutional Review Committee, I know they are working, but in matters like this, it becomes so serious because some of the commentary that you hear outside social media, insults everywhere, sometimes some will link it up to religion and a whole lot. It does not work because at the end of the day, the Venerable Gabi posted something on Facebook this morning, I think about some 3, 4, 5 hours ago, and he was saying that when you destroy yourself and get the nod, how do you regroup to be able to craft a message that you are now ready to give Ghanaians the best of governance when they do give it a nod in 2028? So it needs to be managed well. And like Doc said, when it gets to this time, the national leadership, you don't have to envy them because they are in a lot of work to do, a lot of pressure. When you try to straighten things up, it will be used against you. But whatever be the case, what the Venerable said, they need to go back to the party roots. It's not anybody who comes with plenty money that can. You can have the money, but you support the candidate. Yeah. Unlike the America, the business people, they support. One is a Democrat, the other is a Republican. So if you have the money, you come back. You don't necessarily have to come with your money to buy the position. So Doc will give us a lot as to what is happening.
I'll come to it.
And I think what the Venerable Kwame Mpianim said about how the party should going forward, where they want to. I think General Justin Kodria also spoke about the party, what do you call it, mentorship, where they start to mentor people to get to know. Because a lot of people come into NPP, all they know is the elephant. They don't know anything about the party. So the person gets some little money, he comes to buy a position, and what happens is waywardness. And then, Ghana, we just, you don't need to just go and brag without doing what the party is supposed to be done, or party work is supposed to be done. So I think that Doug will give us some concluding remarks with further and better particulars about what needs to be done.
Before, let me come to Philip. So we know that in 2024, it was a struggle for who is going to actually lead the party into the 2024 elections. We saw some aspirants veer off the party, form their own party, and in a way, we would not want to preempt what the constitution or the committee that actually probed the election defeat would say. But from what political scientists said, it actually has some cause from some party aspirants who actually left the party at that peak time just to form a new party, and it in a way cost some fortunes to the party. We don't want to see this happening, especially with the party. They don't want to have this whole thing going on in the coming general election year. With this early hints that we are picking from various camps within the party, would you say is healthy enough to accommodate all the ideas and all the words or pronouncements these individuals are making? Or do you think it's about time, like Dr. Ekua said, it's about time we just pick someone and then rally our support behind this person within these 3-4 years, so that we don't, at the end of the day, end up in a situation whereby, like last year, we saw some aspirants leave the party because they were promised that they were going to lead the party, and then the game changed and they had to. Well, that is what we got from them. Right. And then at the end of the day, the game changed, and then they had to veer off, form their own party, and it cost the party at least some percentage of fortune.
I think that the party should really quicken its pace so far as the flag-bearership is concerned. Because look, politics thrives on visibility, okay? And then looking at current happenings, most of the aspirants, they want to kind of show that they are there.
Right.
They want to start campaigning very early. So it is inevitable that we are witnessing some of these pronouncements, some of these comments, some of these eternal wranglings among, say, Camp A, Camp B. I don't want to mention specific camps, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So I believe that they should quicken its pace so far as the flag-bearership race is concerned. And also, I will also urge all the potential aspirants, they should really kind of respect the party's unity. I was also in attendance when the mentorship program was held at the party's headquarters.
Right.
The likes of the NPP, the eldest chairman, that is Mr. Hackman.
Yeah.
I think he was very emphatic. He made a pronounced statement, and then I loved it. He was like, people suffered for the party. And so, those that are still there, they should ensure that the NPP is kept very strong. And it's very profound. People suffered. People even toiled. They used their toil, their sacrifices. Some even were in prison. Others also lost their lives along the line. So if eternal elections, there are wranglings, they shouldn't forget that there is a bigger picture, that is the 2028 elections. Ghanaians are watching. So then, if there are cracks eternally now, what would then be the voter confidence? So I will urge them that they should really respect the party spirit of unity, even as they gather momentum. Because, like I said, politics thrives on visibility. They all want to come on, show that, oh, Charlie, they are coming. This man is coming. This flag is coming. Ken is coming. Baumia is coming. Brian is also coming. Others are also coming. But then they should respect the party's foundational unity and ensure that the bigger picture is for them to canvass all the necessary support they need for the Ghanaian electorate, so that come 2028, they can recapture power and then move the country from vibrancy to vibrancy.
From vibrancy to vibrancy, indeed. Doc, let me come to you. So, with the constitutional reforms, so far, what has been what has been the lapses and what has been the... Just give us, something small that we can...
I don't know how I'll be able to go about this.
Just go about it in a very
creative way. We are under an oath of
way.
secrecy.
So that you are in a space where we would ask you to say something. Yes. But I mean, from what you have learned so far.
It's been a very challenging journey for us to do that. It's taken us over a month of sitting together almost every day to ponder over everything, and none of us took it lightly. We're all very much aware of the seriousness of the job that we were given. So the only thing I can say is that every minute we were sitting there or we were gathered anywhere to try and work on the party's constitution, there was only one goal that all of us had, which was what is in the best interest of the NPP. As he rightly said, a lot of people have come before us. A lot of people have suffered for the party before we came. My own great grandfather was also in prison for a while. So many, there's a lot of toil that has gone into the NPP emerging. We are the true democratic party. There's supposed to be something that we stand for. We have to be able to get to that point where people see us for what we stand for, and that will be very difficult to do in the current climate. But I believe that we are all very focused and we are definitely going to achieve that. I do think you will not have to wait for so long to see what comes out of there.
We'll be waiting, so we are still waiting.
Just about 2 or 3 weeks. That's one I can tell you.
2 or 3 weeks.
By latest 3 weeks max, everything will be done, and you have all the information. I'm sure, as one of my closest friends, I can then give you an exclusive.
Definitely, we'll be anticipating for that. But with the question I asked Philip, we saw what happened last year, and we saw how people were eager, or aspirants were eager to occupy that enviable seat of a presidential candidate for the party. And because, some didn't actually get what they wanted, they veered off, and it cost the party some fortune. Looking at what is going on now, the hints from different camps of the party going on now, do you see it to be a history repeating itself in 28?
This is something that's always happens to us, but all I can say is that the noise is always bigger than the effect.
Okay, that's powerful.
Yes, the noise is always bigger than the effect, and the elephant is bigger than all of us. Okay. So if you are seeking to lead and you cannot put that at the forefront of your mind, what that tells you is that you probably will not succeed, and no one man can take down the party that as we've all said, has been built on the blood and toil of so many people before you were even born. So no one person can do that. I hate to sometimes compare what happens to us to the NDC, but we are in a similar ecosystem, and so it's prudent to take some cues from there. There was a time where Obeda Samwa, if I'm not wrong, he broke away from the NDC. They won the election. The wife of the founder of the NDC left. They still won an election. What that shows you is that the party is always bigger than any individual. So even talking about what happened last year and what's not, the candidate that broke away after thinking that he was all powerful and he should be bigger than everybody else, when he broke away, the vote he got is not up to what one MP gets in a constituency in Ashanti region.
Somehow he took some votes away.
No, less than, I think, 30,000 votes or so. He didn't get up to 100,000 votes. I looked at it critically. So what he took away by way of numbers, which, trust me, it will continue to dwindle. Because your people forget that we all do things before we come into the party, blah, blah, blah. But it's the party that carries us all. But people get into the party, and then I don't know if it's their heads that get swollen or what's not, but they get carried away and start to believe in their own authority and their own power over that of the party. And as I've said, historically, that has not been shown to have too much of an effect in the long term. Because if the votes you got, one MP, Kwabri East, Kwabri West, there, Bantama, Florida, all of those members of parliament under the elephant are getting more votes than you who went around the whole country as a supposed presidential candidate, then your acts of distraction really did not make a mark. That's all I can say. So I'll just go back to my point of let's get this vote done early, because I cannot sit here and confidently as early as possible. Me, if I had my way, next month we are voting. If I had my way, because
too early.
No, do you know we've had a power vacuum for a very long time.
Right.
The Conservatives in the UK lost somewhere in July. By January this year, they had a leader, and since then they've been thrown bits of, I would say, goodness for their leader to hook on. First, there was that Palestinian, Pakistani pedophile ring, and because there was one leader, she was able to hammer it, and it was an issue for almost a month. Now, I think they are taxing some farmers, because there's a direction, there's an arrowhead. They are now able to pick apart the Labour government. But here is this: we expect to have a power vacuum for more than a year. It's ridiculous. To me personally, it's one of the things we need to quickly fix. Because if you fix this early, number one, there's no power vacuum. You can start to really organize and face the NDC. Number two, all the things that will happen, and they will fizzle out before 2028. Because the truth of the matter is, if you break away and you do not have the elephants behind you, you cannot do much. You won't go far. You will only make some noise, and the noise and the effects of the noise will never be the same. You will make a lot of noise, but on the ground it will not make that much of an effect. And as we've seen it over the years. So to me, the best thing to do is to do this election as early as possible, end the power vacuum. I think it's only in America where they also have a vacuum for some time, but the rest of most countries, as soon as you lose, to be a formidable opposition, there has to be one head that everybody is following after, and it will bring everybody in line. It will surprise you that once the flag bearer is elected, all those breaking rank, going to say, talk, attack the party's position, doing this, doing that, they will stop doing that, because now there's one person there, and now you can crack the whip, because we've already had the election. You cannot now come and say that I'm suspending you because you are supporting this candidate.
Right. Thank you very much. You want to say something?
Just 30 seconds.
Okay, 30 seconds.
Doc said something that they should be as early as possible. And I know NPP normally will conduct, when they are in opposition, 2 years before elections.
Yeah.
So possibly maybe the constitution, something is happening. That's why.
Maybe it's giving a sense. It's giving a sense that.
This is my personal position.
Well. We wait in some weeks to come, but I mean, it's giving a sense of readiness for the party to forge ahead.
I don't think there's anything standing in our way to elect a flag bearer early. I've not seen anybody make any cogent argument for why we should wait. There's no reason. So that's my very personal conviction.
Okay. That's fine. Philip, do you have anything to say?
In few words. What I would say is that ambition in itself is not a crime, but then it should be regulated. This goes to the various hopefuls that intend to take up these big seats, because they should always remember that the party is bigger than them. The party is bigger than them. Ambition is not a crime, but then they should be circumspect so far as their engagements is concerned. We need the party more strengthened so that come to day 28, they'll be able to unseat the government. So I would say that they should kind of work hard to ensure that the various fragmental sources are really formed into a very formidable and then renewal front, so that all things will be well for the elephant.
Well, ambition is not a crime, but it has to be regulated. The words of Philip Donkor. And this has been Press Pass on Asaase 99.5. My name is Andy Sepah, your host for tonight. I was joined by John Awuni. He is the editor for Kassben Online, and also Dr. Ekua Amoakoh. She is also the voice of the NPP National Communications Team, as well as Philip Donkor, our accidental guest. We believe that in the coming episodes, you will be joining us. He is also with the Daily Statesman. Grateful for your time, gentlemen and lady, for participating in today's episode of Press Pass on Asaase 99.5 Accra. And also big thanks to Gemma Apia for holding this down, as well as Obafo Sasari, my bigger boss, for also supporting with the production. Many thanks to Joseph for bringing us technical production and making it possible for our viewers on social media to also take part in this session, in this program. Many thanks for your time. Until then, have a safe week. Good evening.
Thank you for watching. Like, comment, share, and subscribe.